Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Mangum Talks TV. This is a reaction podcast for season 2, episode 6 of HBO's House of the Dragon. Spencer, how you doing?
I'm doing well, man. We got to watch House of the Dragon. How could that not be a good day?
Well, there was some Damon in it. You may have not liked that. You're could be bad.
Are you asking me what my views of the episode were?
Absolutely, I am. That's what we're here to do. What was your views of the episode? What'd you think of it?
I quite liked it. I felt like it was openly addressing some of my concerns with respect to certain of the characters and progression of the plot line, and there were signs that things were in motion and that there was an overall intent and purpose at play. So I thought it was well written. I thought it was interesting. I thought it had a fun theme going into aspects of humility and people in positions of power looking to those below them for either help or support or manipulation, who could say? And that was threading throughout the episode in a way I found quite compelling. So yeah, this episode gets a solid thumbs up from me.
Yeah, I also liked it. It felt like it was like a setup episode with a high intensity plot line kind of threaded through it, right? Who's like the Dragon Rider piece, who's going to claim a dragon, is like really high drama scenes that they were able to sprinkle into something that continued to build the greater war. And the work of Mysaria, alienating the small folk against the current rulers of King's Landing. I mean, that was just chef's kiss. I mean, that was just fantastic from a plot perspective. It was all very consistent and interesting.
Was that the kiss you prefer to focus on when it comes to her character this episode?
Oh yeah, there's a little thing going on there. We'll talk about that. I didn't know how I felt about that. It was interesting.
I find it interesting for a character that just said she always wanted to be Daemon, and now she's macking with Daemon's lover from season 1. So looking at it from an aspect of that lens was interesting, but also the aspect of support, caring, two souls coming together. There's a lot to ponder and unpack. I think it's fair to say it's a change from the books, but we'll see where it goes.
My worry was that it was just people in positions of power seemed to continually use Mysaria, either use her body or use her resources. And I was when Rhaenyra was kind of going in for the kiss, I was like, I hope this is being reciprocated.
What's the consent here?
Yeah, so it was being reciprocated. Right? I hope this is not just another person in a position of power that Mysaria has like trusted and said, "Ooh, all right, maybe now I've finally found the person who is worthy of my allegiance and my loyalty," and then they just use her again. Well, it seems like Mysaria was into it, so maybe it's okay. I don't know, but that was my first sort of knee jerk with that. But I got to sit with that one for a little while. What did you think of the Dragon Rider piece of this? Sir Stefan Darkly getting lit up. Then it looked like maybe Adam of Hole with Sea Smoke. How did you feel about that whole thing?
I found it interesting because they were really pairing those two together of where the setup, he's the noble line, he's the best choice, he has the closest connection, he's the member of the Kingsguard, he's perfect, the gods will it, and it backfires on them in a dramatic and horrific kind of scene. I thought that was a well-filmed scene, and I thought they've done well with the Stefan Darkman character of him being secondary, but us still caring about him, so I thought that was well executed. But then them tying it to the idea of almost just like a serendipity, or these being powers outside of their control, and almost being a certain degree of hubris to even think that they fully understand this, that Sea Smoke then immediately goes and seeks out a new rider in the form of Alan of Hull. I thought that, or Adam of Hull. I thought that
it's Adam. Yeah, that's the
yes, it was Adam, the younger brother. I like the pairing of that. I like how that ties in again to the themes of this. Apparently, the name of the overall episode was The Small Folk, and the idea that a bastard beneath notice, one that's even ignored by his bastard father in favor of his elder brother, is instead sought out by the dragons and claimed as a rider. I like the idea of that, of where all of their plans have come to naught because this is so far beneath their notice they wouldn't have even pondered it. So I thought the fact that they paired those in the same way was a fun way of doing that.
Interesting. You saw that differently than I did, and it's not like I don't have any like negative reaction how you saw it. I just didn't think of it that way. I was thinking more of they continue to tell us, both in the written material and some in the show, that the dragon chooses the rider. However, in the shows, we have not really seen that. We've seen a lot of riders choose the dragon. We've seen Aemon choose Vhagar, very much so. Just climbed up on his back and just Vhagar was asleep and just climbed right up, right? Dany, of course, I'm putting in quotes, birthed the dragons, but she definitely chose them, chose
Mhm.
Drogon, the largest of the three. It seemed like Jon was choosing Rhaegal. So
Mhm.
and then, the source, of course, a lot of the examples of dragons being
Even Vhagar.
bonded
Yeah.
with writers in the show seem to be either we put the egg in the cradle, or
The
they went and
person
chased
makes
him
the
out in the
conscious
dragon
effort.
pit, right? They were going and chasing him out, right? So every step of the way, the examples that we have in the show kind of undercut this like saying, this mantra, the
Mhm.
dragon chooses the writer. And this is one where we finally got the dragon truly chose the writer. Now, there was I think I noticed that when Seasmoke was flying above, Seasmoke looked down and saw Adam looking at him, like looked
Mhm.
down and like was like kind of perusing the ground and noticed Adam looking up at him, and that's when he did
Mhm.
the hard turn. So maybe there's some element of looking for somebody who's interested in him, but that was as clear as it gets during that chase scene, and then like pushing him up against the boulder that Seasmoke was choosing Adam there, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you talked about consent concerns with Massaria. I've got consent concerns when it comes to Adam and Seasmoke. I think Seasmoke needs to go to an HR class immediately to discuss the idea of unwarranted attention because it was getting a bit much.
It was, however, the because like so here's what was going through my mind is like I love that George makes the dragons as consistent as I think he can. He tries to.
Yes,
Because I like the inclusion of them as real things that we can sort of
things,
quantify,
characters.
understand
Hmm.
rules around it, and it all is consistent. Like I really enjoy that part of his particular fantasy epic. And when Sir Stephen Darkley was approaching Seasmoke, he was chicken shit. He was scared, and rightfully so. But he was so scared. And
Shaking
then
his armor.
even when Seasmoke bent the back and was like, "Come on," he was like, and when Seasmoke cornered Adam up against that boulder and was like, you know, interested clearly, Adam was scared to start with. But they did give us about 5 seconds of Adam relaxing well before Stefan Darkly started to relax. Like we didn't even see Darkly relax, right? But like within a couple seconds, he started to relax and smile, and actually smiled at Seasmoke before that scene cut away. And that I really liked that, because I was like, okay, this isn't necessarily just the dragon picking the rider. It's also the dragon is like, there has to be something that the human is doing to indicate comfort, like like that like their willingness to do this, that they don't just pluck one. I mean, it was more of a test, I guess, is what I'm getting at. It was
Hmm.
more of a test that he was giving him, and Adam passed that test. And that could make it consistent with the previous scene where there was a bit of a testing going on with Stephen Darkly, and he just didn't pass. I guess it's so
It'll be curious to see. It seems like next episode there can be a direct confrontation on the point. And I like that Rhaenyra herself is writing out, having chosen at many points in this episode that she very much is trying to pick up the mantle of Visenya so that people around her respect her and her capabilities, because she views it that no one will respect anyone other than a warrior. She's now writing. You agree?
so she's smacking people.
Oh yeah, right across the face. It was her fault that she allowed him to no longer fear her. Like that line.
So good.
But it'll be curious to see them unpack this next episode why that worked. I like that theory. I think this also may even be an aspect too about. I don't know what degree Lenore said goodbye, but there may be a certain commonality connection there with Lost Love or Lost Rider, that this guy is more closely connected to Lenore than Sir Stefan could ever even claim to be in terms of family descent and connections.
Yeah, it could be. It could be somehow smells the Valerian blood. I mean, we know that they can tell Targaryen blood, so maybe they're able to tell
Hmm.
the Valerian blood. Um, Maybe skin color, maybe the area that he found it, like on Driftmark, where the Valerian family is. Um, yeah, it could be maybe, it could be any number of things that he shares with Lenore. I do know, I do know that there was an awful lot of chatter and fan theories that Adam was just Lenore come back. Lenore had just come back to fight in
A
this war.
lot of pondering there, yes.
And it seems like the show has killed
No.
that. That is not the case. That Adam is a true-born bastard, right? A true-born bastard of.
That is an accurate statement. A weird one,
Well,
but accurate.
It's kind of important, right? Because there was also a lot of theories on like, well, they say they're the bastards of the
Yes.
of the sea snake, but are they really? And they seem to be representing that they really are the bastards of the sea snake. And this is just a new character. It's just Adam, and he's now flying sea smoke. So shout out.
Can I give you some richly deserved credit, by the way?
Yeah, fire away.
Your theory last episode that we would see Aegon awake was proven immediately true.
Yeah,
Like,
I thought that's what they're going for.
20 minutes into the episode, he is awake and having a confrontation with his younger brother.
Yeah, I felt pretty good about that one. But I think your broader point was correct, which is like, don't expect this guy to be like up and rolling and like doing anything. Like he's in
Probably
bed
not.
and and even if he starts to sniff it, Aemon's made it clear that he might just push him right back in bed. So, yeah.
How do you feel about my character growth Daemon theory after some scenes this episode? It seems like this episode may have been leaning a little in the idea that there is an arc goal with the Harrenhal visions.
Shout out that Viserys can come back. Keep getting them checks. Keep getting them checks. It's
Patty
fantastic.
Constantine deserves them.
It's hard for me to not see some of those scenes and go, okay, they liked the season 1 actors and they were trying to bring some of them back.
Sure.
And it's not surprising to me that the scenes where we feel like they're deviating from the book and like interjecting something they wanted to interject because they liked the actors ends up being the weakest plot line of it. Like we've covered this before on multiple adaptations, where when it feels like the adapters of the visual format of the series is doing something because they like the actor. Oh, we got a good actor, we got to put him in more scenes. Oh, we like the good actor, we got to bring him back for another season or extend them, let them subsume other characters. This type of stuff. You hear it a lot in adaptations. That ends up being the weakest part.
A bit shoehorned, as it were.
Yeah, and it's not bad, but I think it's the weakest part of the season for sure. You and I had some text conversations about this week about the Daemon piece of this is like, I think most people agree it's the weakest part of the season. To the extent it's bothering people seems to be somewhat variable.
Mm-hmm. It feels like I'm hoping that they've got an overall purpose with it, because otherwise it feels like a bit of a waste of time. And it is a character that he's an awkward choice to waste time with, given that he's meant to be the most dynamic character in the entire damn show in terms of his multitudes, his complexity, his war within himself, his inability for anyone else to accurately predict what he's going to be able to do. Him kind of sitting marinating at Harrenhal. I'm hoping it's going to have some purpose, and this episode implied to me a bit that it does, and I was hopeful for that, and I liked that scene with Alice Rivers kind of going in that direction, and his relationship with his brother is one of the relationships I found most compelling about him, and so spending a bit of time that was appreciated. But again, it's a build-up to what will hopefully be payoff next episode of what has been the purpose of this prolonged sojourn at Harrenhal, and I cannot be sure yet.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel good that that's going to pay off that well.
Do you find there's sufficient payoff associated with Lannisters literally traveling with lions in giant crates?
I guess that's pretty cool. I mean, I think that we talked about this in the full recap. It does seem that George likes to show genetic traits in families,
yes.
Personality traits. And it seems like the Lannisters
carry through.
Seems like the Lannisters have some of these, right? Like kind of pompous, bullheaded, and the lions are sort of representative of that. I mean, I couldn't help but think when I saw like they had a lion, it goes like, okay, what the fuck does that accomplish? Like, what are you doing? Like, this is such vanity to even bring this animal with you. Sure, there's no way it's trained, so that's just to have it. It's silly.
I'm reminded of like when the senior generals of the Ottoman Empire just besieged Vienna. They brought a full circus with them, so that when the Polish and German soldiers eventually took the Ottoman camp, they were then chasing like ostriches, trying to catch them as they were running through the camp. There's a certain element of that just unnecessary pageantry of course they travel with lions. Who doesn't? That's the only way to go on the town. As you said, there is a commonality that George likes to pan across generations of where Lannisters are always Lannisters, Freys are always Freys. You can predict it whenever you see these characters put their various different points in the timeline.
Yeah, and Jason Lannister just falls right in, and it's the sort of the worst elements of Jaime Lannister without the best elements of it. And Tylan is a sort of 1/10 version of Tywin, like 2/10 or something, like clearly interested in governance, clearly more of a thinker than than engaging in a lot of physicality, but nowhere near at his level. But there's like remnants of those characters in what we're seeing from the Lannisters and their dumbass lions.
How
The
did you
lions
feel
themselves,
about?
I guess, are fine. I mean, I don't know. I didn't really
You
get that.
didn't talk with him.
The lion
You know,
might be okay, but it's sort of situationally dumb. The
yeah.
lion doesn't need to be there.
Uh, very, very well said. How did you feel about the first days of Aemon's rule, of his regency, as it were?
Seems like he's doing a great job. I think he's the guy we need for the time, Spencer. Us Greens. He's the person we need for right now. The thing that he's clearly deficient at is anything that's not military, like anything at all,
Hmm.
because his inability to understand that the blockade is important and that the people in your own city liking you and being like, reasonably healthy and fed and happy is like important. That is just that's way he just has missed that completely. Like he 100% at this point could take Vagar out and burn up the blockade. 100% could do that, and he's choosing not to. He just keeps going. We'll deal with that at some point. I mean, I'm irritated with it, but we'll deal with that at some point. Rhaenys is not there anymore. He knows Daemon isn't near the blockade. He can go deal with it. He's choosing not to do it because it's just not important to him right now. Big miss on his part. Pretty good military commander, though.
I found it interesting that he seems to be aware in some ways that he has a lack of caring when it comes to domestic affairs, to the concerns of the small folk, and that he's the one that's recommending bringing back Otto Hightower, who, on the other hand, has decided to respond to text messages the same way I do and has just gone on silent.
Yeah, pretty much. He's having one of those Spencer weekends. It's like you're just not going to get him. Although I thought that little line from Gwaine was interesting, where Gwaine was like, "You'll hear from him if you need to hear from him," and I felt like that didn't seem like a careless line.
It did.
I felt like a really purposeful line of dialogue of like kind of speaking to us, like,
yeah.
Otto will make himself known when he wants to make himself known, and he's got reasons for everything he's doing.
The man has priorities. He's clearly busy. You just need to respect that and acknowledge he will text back when he is ready and able to do so.
Yeah, and don't give him any shit about it because he's just not going to hear it.
Nope.
Otto just doesn't want to hear that shit.
Yeah, you saw how Otto acted in season 2. He is not in the mood for this shit right. Episode 2. He's not in the mood for this shit right now.
But here's where the analogy falls apart: is that Otto was the lead texter early in this season.
Oh yeah, he was texting everybody.
Everybody.
Checking in.
Hey, just want to see how you're doing. Just check it in. Just a little touch point here.
Coordinating cons going to. Just you got to arrange these things. Get them worked out.
I gotta make sure your parking's handled. Okay, like let me make sure you have a parking spot. Yeah, so it's very different. And then the inclusion of Daeron. Like I wanted to ask you about that. People call him Darren. I've read it Daeron in my head for years now, so I shall call him Daeron.
It's got an E, for God's sake. You have to add it in.
Daeron. So how do you feel about the inclusion of this character? And I think you can answer that in two parts, right? There's the book reader side of you. Are you just happy he's there? But then also like how they've done
it. Unnecessary fumble. We've discussed this at season 1. There was no reason to omit him. You could have set him up back then. It would not at all be as jarring. But that's just the world we're in. I adored that scene between Alicent and her brother. I really liked that scene. I really liked the process of describing him. And ending on the word kind so delightfully spoke volumes and so perfectly spoke to Alicent about what she wanted to know. She doesn't know her son, and they're putting us in the same eyesight that she has that we don't have perspective on either because she lacks it. We're going to get to meet him. But I thought that was a very interestingly done introduction of, we don't know him, the mother doesn't know him. What few words can tell us what we need to know? And ending on the word kind was a masterful choice. I think the show put itself in a very awkward bind by not at all even acknowledging the existence of this character previously. But as an episode to introduce him, I like how they did this. I found that was a very well done moment between two siblings, one of whom knows and one of whom doesn't, and telling us what we ourselves are now learning for the first time.
I feel like I could talk for a half hour about that sequence because I agree with you that how they have included the character is just a fumble. They just fumbled
Yes.
it. Like one
Fundamental.
line of dialogue would have created consistency, and nobody's having the conversation, but they just didn't include it because I don't think that they knew they wanted to include the character. It felt like they
100%.
did, and now they're including him, and so it seems kind of weird. But there was a lot of things going on in that sequence that I found interesting. First and foremost, like you gave me some credit earlier in the episode. What do? I just give it right back. You called that Gwen Hightower might be an okay dude. You were like, I think I might like him, and yeah, I like him. Like I know for sure I like him. He's a little bit of a smartass when we first first saw him, and he seemed like sort of the pompous prince, right? No, this is a good dude. Like you can tell because the way he navigates Cole. He's doing his duty. He seems to be brave. And the way he was able to show kindness to a sister who probably wasn't always that kind, from alleviating her fear about Daron, and then also comforting her and saying, hey, it was probably okay that I stayed behind at Highgarden. You don't need to feel guilt about that. He could have gone in for the kill and been like, yeah, I know, if you were always father's favorite. Like, he hit her with that line. He was joking. He could have gone back in on that and continued to help her feel guilt about that, but he seemed to not want that for her, right? A lot of things in that sequence where I liked him. And we can also talk about how that whole crew, Cole's whole crew, is just fucking shot through. They are so fucked up about the dragons. Like, Gwaine was like, did you see the body language when he had to leave? He was like, I guess I'm leaving.
Man needs a vacation at best.
They're all fucked up in the game from the dragons. That was a traumatic thing for everybody on the field.
It was. That is probably my favorite scene of the episode. It's an episode with a lot of great scenes, but I really liked how well that actor portrayed a character that is returning to a war that he is yet to recover from, and is yet to really be comfortable with the idea of marching back into. And then his relationship with the sister, the descriptions we get of it, marvelously executed scene, I thought.
Yeah, that scene was fantastic. What else do we got this episode?
We got another riot in King's Landing. I feel like we need to get one or two of those every season.
We got a riot in King's Landing. Huh.
We got.
I only really cared about Helena in that sequence. I was like, are we really doing this to her? Like, what else can we dump on this character? Did she have to be included in this?
I think she did. And it's interesting too. You and I have pondered that they seem to be going with a different direction of this character. I'm now wondering whether they're picking a different source for trauma, of where what seemed to scar her most previously was the small folk and people that she didn't know and people trying to put their emotions on her. Back during the funeral procession, that seemed like that was the thing that was most sticking with her and most difficult for her. Now they've done it again, and that can't be accidental that they keep having that similar kind of event happen to this character, and I wonder to what degree they're going to now reroute the character back into a more book-friendly direction as a result of just a different kind of focus on trauma.
Yeah, it seems like Jace got a little sidelined this episode. Maybe Rhaenyra blaming him slightly for what happened to Stefan Darkly. I don't know if that's what she was thinking about or not.
It's interesting. It seems like she's resenting the idea of people questioning her, particularly coming now from what she views as her camp. And she does not like that I don't think her son was questioning her that much. I don't think his suggestion of getting Daemon back in the fold is at all a bad idea. I think it's something they inevitably kind of need to push. But because she is now so stubborn to create her own path and create her own image and earn loyalty through it, rather than other people and other things, the idea that he is voicing these concerns or making these suggestions, she now views as a negative, which I think is hyper responding to a legitimate problem, but it is hyper responding in the wrong direction to the wrong person with respect to it. And so it was interesting to see how quickly she was pulling away from Jace, her stalwart, son and person that's by her side, because she's now so determined to create her own path.
Yeah, I don't know. I think overall you're right about the read between those two characters and the sort of the feeding of support versus questioning and how Rhaenyra is handling both of those things and how that's bleeding into a relationship with Jace. But I also kind of want to give Rhaenyra a little bit of a break of like, can everybody please stop bringing up the fact that she can't get on the same page with her husband in front of her. Like, it seems like everybody continues to
does
bring
suck
that
a
up to
little.
her. And it's like kind of an awkward thing and like a little bit rude to bring up to her, like directly. Maybe Jace should get the pass. Maybe he's the one she shouldn't snap at, but she should start snapping at somebody about this because she's being brought up too much directly to her.
Is this the kind of situation where a friend has been separated and yet and that's all everyone ever wants to talk about them is how is the separation going? Are you two trying to work things out? Are you trying to deal with things? He was like, I just want to go, play like, laser tag or something. Can we just do anything other than talk about this place?
Yeah, it's pretty much anything with a relationship. Like if you have a buddy who's like in a relationship and everybody's like, oh God, would he just like get away from her? Like he doesn't want to hear that. And the buddy who just got divorced, he doesn't want to talk about that either. The lady who just lost the meanest dragon in the realm with the fiercest warrior in the realm, she doesn't want to hear about that shit either. People don't want you to talk about their relationship problems to them. And you can bet she knows they need Caraxes. She's aware of that. Like my God, she sent one of her council members to go try to talk to Daemon. It's probably time to stop bringing that up to her. I found myself like, while I did pledge allegiance to Team Green earlier this season, I found myself pretty sympathetic to Rhaenyra this episode. Like I felt like she needed to smack her council member Bartimos. She needed to give him she needed to round on that guy. She needed to push back, maybe not to Jace, but to someone about, please don't bring up Daemon around me anymore. Yeah. And I can see how she has been. I can see how now her confidant is Mysaria, because Mysaria gave her a piece of advice. Like, it seems like people are giving her advice she already knows. Hey, Rhaenyra, you need an army. Hey, Rhaenyra, you need to get Caraxes. Hey, Rhaenyra, you need to get money. But Mysaria goes, here's a specialty you don't have that I have. Let me handle that for you. Like, that's a particularly useful thing as a leader when somebody comes to you, addresses you that way and goes, here's something I've got, like I specialize in it, I know how to do it, and I think it'll help you in this specific instance. Just give me leave to go do it.
What did you make of the scene with Rhaena over in the Eyrie, of where meeting with Lady Jane, going over to Pentos, but also there may be a dragon afoot?
I'm being super obvious for our video audience. Our podcast audience, it's a spoiler situation. I can't talk too much about it. I think I know where they're going with that storyline. Although I do think it's interesting that now the character that you thought was just dog shit boring, like she was the most boring character ever put on television, Jane Eyre.
Not my words.
Good God, like this lady. Could you just dress up a little or something? You were so bored by her.
Oh, get fucked.
She might have been fibbing a little bit to Rhaenyra. Maybe not. Maybe we can unding one of the Vhagar references. Maybe there was something else she was worried about descending from the sky, not necessarily just Vhagar. So I thought that was an interesting thing in the relationship with the Arryns.
I did like that. I found that an interesting touch. It added a certain degree of complexity and relevance to that storyline that otherwise just felt like we were just kind of, checking in where various people are to remind us. That was a touch that gives me a lot of leave to ponder what they may be trying to work or consolidate or shift hats with respect to, and that could be fun.
Lady Arryn did not have sex with 4 or 5 people this episode, so
there's time. We got 2 episodes.
Spitzer was struggling to find her interesting, and then guess what? She did come through. She came through because she was lying about the threat of the dragon, because there's actually a big wild dragon near her. Now, she said something interesting. She said that we noticed it at the end of the war. What war is she talking about? What was that reference?
War in the Stepstones, maybe?
Maybe, but that's it. Like that wouldn't. Yeah. Did everybody in the realm call that the war?
It's the closest thing they have to one in terms of anything resembling living memory. So maybe. I went back.
Could it have been? Could how old is Sheepstealer? Sheepstealer's not from the Aegon Conquest time, right?
No. We can ponder this with Cannibal, because Cannibal you hate, giant question marks
Doesn't
everywhere.
Exist. Phantom Dragon.
Maybe. But Sheepstealer and Grey Ghost, relatively young. They're nothing resembling that kind of age going back to that. But I double checked, and the show back in later part of season 1 did confirm there are 3 wild dragons. We had Daemon just go through the list, and so there are 3 wild dragons within the context. Didn't say their names, just said there were 3 wild dragons that nest at Dragonstone.
Oh, well, the nested Dragonstone.
That's the just saying those are the ones we know exist. That's explicitly how he said it, is that we got 3 in storage, 3 nesting at Dragonstone, and the other ones are either currently under arms.
Interesting. Okay, well, yeah, I liked that, and I think that needs to. I know Raina is going through it right now. She's got a million things on her plate, but I think that piece of information needs to get back to Rhaenyra. It may not change how she interacts with Lady Arryn right now.
No,
right now, I think you continue what you're doing, but I think now you maybe change your approach when you are working or negotiating with her, because she's shown the ability to kind of not be completely truthful.
She's returning what has been offered in terms of, I made no terms with respect to why I was asking for a dragon. I made no suggestion about what dragons may or may not be already present. I'm responding to you offering me that thing as my dragon in terms of the terms of our treaty. All's fair in love and war.
Yeah, I guess I'm a little more sympathetic for Rhaenyra in that situation. I know the parallel you're drawing, but like Rhaenyra's done lost 2 dragons. Like she didn't have a lot of them. She doesn't have a lot of them. Maybe she'll send one when people start riding them around. Maybe she'll just send a couple over there.
At this point, she's relying on the Vale in the north to send her a field army that she presently entirely lacks. So there is a fair trade at play here, assuming the Knights of the Vale ever march.
What did you think of Rhaenyra just hopping on Syrax to go check out who's riding Seasmoke?
I think Rhaenyra is trying to be a much more active leader, that she's trying to show decisive leadership. I think she also feels like there has never been anything that is more my domain, that I'm the dragon rider, I'm the dragon queen, that's my husband's ex-dragon, my good God, my ex-husband's dragon?
Annulled husband's ex-dragon.
Yes, those words. This is something that she needs to get personally involved in. I think it's also just an element, too, of where she feels like, accurately, that she's been kept passive all season and has acted passively with respect to the war effort. And so this is something that she's not going to book any discussion about. She's going to confront it.
They have made a point of mentioning that she's a good dragon rider and that Syrax is fast on the show.
Yes.
That was not necessarily the case in the book. Syrax was slow and kind of lazy. And I don't think that anybody thought Rhaenyra was a particularly good dragon rider in the book that I remember or could find. They've changed that in the show a little bit. So if the canon that they are pushing is that she is a better, her combo, right? Her and Syrax are a better, faster driver or flyer than Jace is on Vermax or RX, right? Vermax or RX, one of the two.
Vermax, I think. Yeah, I think RX is the one that got chewed.
Vermax. If that's the case, then that's fine. But if it's just I'm going just because I want to do something, I don't like that as much. Like there needs I want her to be more strategic. Like I want it to not be running hot or cold, right? Because she'll go cold too, or she didn't do anything. I don't want her to just be running hot now, where she's just like, no, I'm doing it. It needs to be like, well, Syrax is faster. Syrax is better. You've introduced a great idea for this. That maybe this is the reason that like Syrax clearly knows Seasmoke. Flew a lot. They flew a lot together. Now that didn't really stop fucking Melees and Vhagar from fighting when they know each other clearly and had known each other.
Buddy.
But yeah, it doesn't necessarily change things. But like those dragons are familiar, right? So maybe that's a reason too.
I did like that we got to see that Rhaenyra was backing actually strategic decisions. If she even did a list of, I'm doing these 5 other things while I'm also doing this other thing, of where this is a Rhaenyra that's actually actively being involved in a way that was getting frustrating she wasn't before, where her options are limited, her armies aren't there, she's pondering whether she can win this war, but she's at least making moves and making a lot of them. And we got to see this episode, particularly the ones that are associated around King's Landing, appear to be already paying dividends in a way that things have not for her since really kind of like the end of last season and the beginning of this season.
I guess the only other thing I have to tell you is I really enjoyed the first few minutes when I got to see Corlys right hand right next to Rhaenyra, ready to go. He was dressed to the nines and he has clearly pulled himself up out of it to the extent enough to assume the role and perform the duties.
Yeah, I feel like I was a little bit unfair to him over the last couple episodes we've talked about it. For
Yeah.
I do forget at times that he has lost literally everyone.
Everybody,
It's like
all by himself.
both his children, his brother, his wife. It has been a rough road for Corlys over 2 seasons. The fact he's able to even to just participate is impressive enough, but I'm looking forward to him acting the man the legends have painted him as. If anything, it's more impressive if he's able and will be able to do so in light of all the tragedy that has befallen him.
I think it's the right move. He is the most capable of the people committed to her.
Of her only army that she has in the form of her fleet at present.
Right. And it's the best move for him, right? Everybody agrees differently, but most people need something to do. I mean, just, not to just lay around, right? So I think that's probably a good move for both of them. I liked seeing it. I got a little pop out of that. I was cheering at the screen.
And we saw its effects immediately of where his presence in the room, this was the most organized and least backbiting Black Council we've yet seen on the series, of where his presence, him serving with his hand, it silences a lot of the unnecessary spittle that has been characterizing most of their meetings. We still got to see Lord Bartimos do that wonderful moment of just saying, I don't want to say I told you so, but I feel obliged to say I told you so, but he got a proper slap in the face for that in private. But
as he should.
I feel like what we've already seen, the Sea Snake being at her side is going to have a positive effect on her overall war effort.
Do you think that they're going to lean hard into the dragon chooses its rider, and the lesson that Rhaenyra is going to take from this is, we can't bring people to the dragons. We got to take the dragons to the people and just let the two big dragons that she's got there go.
I'm curious about it. It's an interesting way they've done this, of where it's similar to what we talked about, the reveal to Alicent about how Darren works, being revealed to us as well. The reveal to how the dragons work is now also going to be revealed to Rhaenyra at the same time as it is us. So we're going to have to unpack what that means and how they should use that live come just next episode.
Just go Silverwing. Go.
Yeah, let's just let Vermithor and Silverwing to second and third well, maybe second and third. Who knows about the cannibal? Can't really say. Among the largest dragons in the realm, just he exists. He's on the show. He's been talked about.
Yeah, he fucks everything up though. See, you were in the middle of something. You had to stop and go, well, who knows about the cannibal? See, this is why cannibal sucks.
Yeah, that's why cannibal's great, and you're eventually going to accept this. But letting the two of the largest dragons and oldest dragons, former dragons of kings and queens, just roam free in the wilderness, something they're definitely not inclined to do. But the fact that they now have a dragon to a rider in a way that they previously were now thinking was impossible, or at least would involve a lot more noble incineration, it's got to give them ideas. Got to lead them to ponder how they can actually work this going forward in a way they didn't previously understand.
That's maybe where we're going. I think it might be, hey, Vermithor, get out there.
You go find yourself somebody.
Well, because they're not going to be able to bring a heck of a lot of other nobles in there to try to. I mean, that point got brought up in the show. They're not going to be able to bring very many other people in there to try this.
It may also lead them to ponder as well that, a bastard, an unrecognized bastard of a minor noble family, somebody that would be beneath our notice is now riding a dragon. Maybe we should broaden our definition of who we're deeming worthy of making this attempt.
Gotta let the dragons pick.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the answer. Anything else you want to talk about this episode?
No, I thought this was a good episode. I liked it quite a bit. I feel like it's going to give us a lot of meat for discussion, and it felt breezy. Some parts of the last episode, I wouldn't describe them as a slog, but they felt long. This one did not feel that way. I felt like these scenes were well structured and laced together, so the episode moved along at a very appropriate clip.
And this was actually longer. This was actually a longer episode than the last one. So it's interesting that you say that. Last episode, I very much had the feel that we were reading epic fantasy. We were jumping from set to set. We were moving plot lines together. It was a lot of short dialogue over here and then cut over here and then over here. And then you have to remember all the characters. This was a little bit of that, but you're right that I think that there was a little bit long. The scenes were a little longer. We stayed with individuals longer. I'm not sure we jumped quite as many settings.
I don't think so.
And the episode did flow really well. I was pleased with it, and I think that we're getting somewhere with the Daemon plot line. I mean, if anything, I feel like Alice Rivers gave us where we were going with that, right? Because she said, do nothing for now. In 3 days' time, the winds will shift. I felt like that was something I
Ma-
needed to tell you when you're getting frustrated about the Damon plotline. Is to say, do nothing for now.
No,
3 days' time, the winds will
what
shift.
what you were doing was Sir Simon Strong going shh 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 with a knife against my throat. It's okay.
We'll be
It's
all right.
okay.
3 days' time, we're all good. Yeah. All right. Well, good. Fun episode. Enjoyed chatting with you about it. Spencer will be back midweek. I'll be back on Wednesday night to talk through the whole thing, break it down line by line like we always do here on Mangum Talks TV. Thanks everybody for listening and have a great start to your week. We'll see you then.